Patrons, stay tuned after the show for some extra content. I'll discuss how Stoicism has improved my marriage.
Wisdom,
Prudentia,
justice,
Justitia,
temperance,
Temperantia,
courage.
Fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. This is Steve coming to you from Conway, Arkansas. And I'd like to thank Derek, my newest patron on patreon.com, helping to support the show, keep the lights on, and keep the podcast going. Thank you, Derek, for your support. This week, we're going to look at some applied ethics, sort of business ethics or everyday ethics. Stoicism is a lofty philosophy. We talk about what the true good is, what is the greatest good, how one should live their life, kind of in a grand scheme. But life occurs in day-to-day moments, day-to-day experiences, and it has a lot to do with our interactions with our fellow humans. So this week's episode will look at something really important, this idea that even good people, good Stoics, will have different opinions on what the right thing to do is in certain situations. So this week we're going to hear from Cicero, and he is talking about how two different Stoics of antiquity, both former heads of the school, Diogenes of Babylon and Antipater, I call him Antipater in here, that's probably Antipater, but forgive my pronunciation, how they have different views over the same moral conundrum. Basically, it boils down to two scenarios. One, you're the owner of a big shipment of grain going to a country that is undergoing a famine, and they have no food, and they're willing to pay top dollar for your grain. But you happen to know that a couple miles behind you, or a few kilometers behind you, there are more ships with more grain coming. But the people in this starving country don't know that. So you can sell your grain for top dollar. Or you could say, hey, I know this is worth, $100 a bushel, but there are a bunch more ships coming behind me, so really I'll just sell it to you for $10 a bushel because in about an hour this grain won't be worth nearly as much as it is right now. The other thing they argue about is if you have a house for sale and suppose it's got a lot of rats living in it, but it looks pretty nice, but it has, some issues. Maybe there are some termite damage or some rats that come out at night. So you have the house for sale. Do you need to tell the people who want to buy the house all the defects? Or do you just tell them about the good things and move on? What's the right thing to do? And that's where Cicero picks up in the reading today. De Officiis by Cicero, Book 3, starting at reading number 50. Suppose, for example, at a time of famine in Rhodes, with provisions selling at fantastic prices, and suppose that an honest man has imported a large cargo of grain from Alexandria, and that he has certain knowledge that other importers have also set sail from Alexandria with much grain. Is he to report that fact to the Rhodians, or should he keep quiet and sell his grain at the highest market price possible? I am assuming the case of a virtuous, upright man, and I am raising the question on how a man would think and reason who would not conceal facts from the Rhodians if he thought it was immoral to do so. In deciding cases of this kind, Diogenes of Babylon, a great and highly esteemed Stoic, consistently holds one view. His pupil Antipater, a most profound scholar, holds another. According to Antipater, all the facts should be disclosed, that the buyer may not be uninformed of any detail that the seller knows. According to Diogenes, the seller should declare any defects in his wares insofar as is required by law. But for the rest, he has goods to sell, and he may try to sell them to the best possible advantage, provided he is guilty of no misrepresentation. Antipater's argument is that it is your duty to consider the interests of your fellow men and to serve society. You were brought into the world under these conditions and have these inborn principles which you are duty bound to obey and follow. That your interest shall be the interest of the community, and conversely, that the interest of the community shall be your interest. In view of all these facts, would you conceal from your fellow men what plenteous supplies are on their way? It is one thing to conceal, Diogenes will perhaps reply. Not to reveal is quite a different thing. At this present moment I am not concealing from you, even if I am not revealing to you the nature of the gods or the highest good. And to know these secrets would be of more advantage to you than to know the price of wheat. But I am under no obligation to tell you everything that may be of interest to be told. So what do? What's the right thing to do? So Cicero is saying here, he's not coming at this from the angle of the shady used car salesman. This is two moral people having a discussion about the right thing to do. Two people that have the same basic foundational views on how the world works. Two Stoics, and yet they don't have the same viewpoint here. So Diogenes is saying you have to reveal what's wrong, or you have to reveal all the facts only as it applies to the law of the land. So if you have a shipment of grain, and there's no law that says you have to disclose all knowledge of your competitors. You have a shipment of grain. You know there's more grain coming, but you're going to get top dollar if you don't reveal that. That's okay. You don't have to reveal all facts that are beneficial to the person you're selling to. You only need to do what is right by the law as long as you're not deliberately misrepresenting. So you couldn't tell them there are no ships right behind me. There are no ships coming at all. You're going to have no more grain after this for a while. You can't misrepresent the facts, but you can remain silent. Now, Antipater, what he says is, no, you are a member of the cosmos, of the human cosmopolis, the human family, and it is your duty to do what is right for the community, because what is right for the community is ultimately right for you. So they have a different view here. I think, Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus probably would agree with Antipater here, Antipater, as I like to call him here. Now, when it comes to selling a house, there's the same basic kind of arguments. Diogenes says, well, you can't misrepresent the house, but you don't want to just, when you're trying to sell something, it doesn't make sense. It's not in the nature of a salesperson to walk up and say, hey, you want to buy this house? Let me give you a list of everything that's happened here, everything that's wrong with it. So yeah, look, that roof that's probably going to be leaky here next time it rains, and there is some termite damage in that wall, and someone was stabbed in that closet over there. Oh, and did you know that the dog likes to pee in that room right there? So that room's going to smell. He's saying, that's not how a salesperson's going to work. That's not how they're going to act. But you do need to do what's required by the law, and you're not going to lie. If someone says, "So does the roof leak?" you'd have to say, "Yeah, it does." But Diogenes suggests that a lot of the burden is on the buyer. Caveat emptor, right? Let the buyer beware. The seller shouldn't misrepresent. The seller should not lie, but the seller need not tell the buyer everything. It's up to the buyer to look at it and determine if it's something they wish to purchase. Whereas Antipater is going to say, no, it is your duty as a member of the human cosmopolis to share everything you know about this house. So what I think is important to glean from this is not that we have resolution to the argument. It's important to note that there can be differences within the same school, and that doesn't mean the school needs to break apart into different schools, right? And another thing that I think is important to take home from this lesson is that we need to be our own philosophers. Stoicism doesn't always tell you how to act in every situation. That's not the point. It's to have a foundation from which you can decide what the moral thing is to do in a situation. Not to be told what it is, but for you to weigh the evidence, to weigh the viewpoints, and then to choose. It's about probability. If you read I'm somewhere in the middle of The Inner Citadel by Pierre Hadot, and it talks about how we as non-sages can only work with probability. We won't always know how to make the right decisions. We can make what's probably best from the standpoint of probability. We are not perfectly aligned with universal reason, as it were. We won't always make the perfect decisions, but we have to do our best to make what's most likely the best decision in each circumstance. And that doesn't mean doing what Epictetus did or doing what Seneca did. It means thinking to the foundational principles of our school, being a philosopher, which is not regurgitating what others have done, but coming up with your own emergent ideas on what to do based on your knowledge of what is right and wrong, based on the school that you choose to accept, in this case, Stoicism. So I urge you to try this. Try this thought experiment for yourself. What is right? Should this shipper of grain tell the people in this country that there's more grain coming in about 10 minutes? Or should this seller of the grain sell the grain for top dollar and then move on? What do you think they should do? And why? That's how we get to solving logical problems, how we get to having discussions on what the best thing to do is. And more importantly, we can take it out of this realm of what ifs. What if this grain merchant does this, to your real life? So what if to what you should do? What ought you do today? How should you decide on this business deal? How should you treat your children? How should you treat your spouse? On that note, I've been married 9 years this week, and I do want to tell my spouse, Chrissy, happy anniversary. And on that note, from the Sunday Stoic, stay safe, stay healthy. It's a pleasure talking to you each week. And check out this reading by Cicero. Cicero is a really cool source of Stoic knowledge, even though he was not a Stoic. He recorded a lot of what the early and mid Stoics thought, and we don't have the writings anymore, but we do have his interpretation of them. So I'll put a link to the reading in the show description. Check it out. All right, seize the day. Support the show if you can. And supporting the show is just rating it on iTunes, sending me an email, letting me know that this show matters in some way is useful to me as a preferred indifferent. And keep on keeping on. Keep on being stoic and seize the day. Carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to the Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, carpe diem.
Hey, patrons, it's Steve. Coming to you from my computer desk here at home. It's a Friday. I stayed home today because my kid...